Good morning. Today we're sitting down with Ralph Short of Welcome Home Financial Partners. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing just dandy. So in these podcasts, we just try and go through, get a little bit of your background, understand who you are, and what got you to the position you're in here as a self-made man.
That's a good question. There's not been a roadmap for me.
So where'd you grow up? Let's start at the beginning.
I grew up in North Carolina. I was in probably the first 10 years of my life outside of Charlotte. And then my father decided that we need to move to the mountains of Carolina. So we bought a 300-acre farm on New River. And we had a construction group that we used to build about 52 houses a year in addition to farming. So that's kind of what my background was until 1974 when I graduated from high school, and all of a sudden we were still building, but that's when the first crash of all the real estate is. So I decided to go to tech to become a veterinarian.
Fair enough. Been around all those animals.
But that didn't work out too well, mainly because I had two jobs while I was at tech. I was showing cattle for tech. I was a student beef herdsman at the time. And I was showing cattle for tech. And the sophomore year, I was taking organic chemistry, and the professor I had was an English professor from England that was teaching organic. His grading scale was you had a quiz every Friday. There was no makeups. If you missed it, that's too tough for you, and a final. Mm-hmm. So I had 90% of my grade on the quizzes, but I had to miss 75% of those because I was showing cattle for tech at the state fairs in West Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland. So guess what? I'm not a veterinarian now.
Well, so what did you finish with at tech?
I finished in animal science, had a degree in that, and I started managing 10,000 acre spread up in Fauquier County. We had 1,000 brood cows, registered horn Herefords. And after he kind of straightened it out, the owner decided it was time to have a dispersal sale and get out of the business. So in that period of time, I had gotten married, and I knew that I needed to do something. And I had job offers from Wyoming Hereford Ranch to Brown Cattle Ranch down in Texas. And the guy that was managing the dispersal sale told me, he said, "Ralph, if you don't like moving around too much, then you need to get out of this business because you're good at what you do. But every 3 years, you're probably going to have a dispersal sale, so you'll never have a very long length of time in any of this profession." So I decided to go back and get a master's in finance. I've always enjoyed economics and finance and making money because that's what it's all about.
Sure. Did you go back to tech?
I went back to tech, but my employer at the time was a graduate of Yale. And he told me, "Ralph," he said, "I can get you into Yale. I can get you into Harvard." I said, I just got off horseback in my spurs and chaps, rounded up some cattle for him. And I said, "Do you really think I look like that kind of person?" I said, "I'll just go back to tech." And he goes, "Oh no, I'll get you into Wharton." I said, "Henry, I'm going back to tech." So I did that. They told me it'd take me 4 years to get a master's. And I looked at him, I said, "I'm paying for this. I'll be done in a year." And I was done in a year with the classroom work, but I took another quarter to do my thesis. Mm-hmm. So then that was in 82 when I finished up, and that was the year of another recession. And so I had to go back and get another job managing another farm for a German group. And after 2 years, I had an offer from American Bankers Association to do some work with their ag credit division. And I told the owners, and they said, "Well, don't do that. We're going to make you managing partner, fly over to Germany, and we will make you managing partner." So me being naive, thinking that everybody was honest in this world, I did that and flew to Germany. And the next morning when I woke up to have breakfast with the owners, he goes, "Go home and sell operation. We're done." After I turned the job down, and I said, "Well, how long has you've known about this?" And he said, "About a year." And I said, "Well, what's the deal? And he said, well, that's just what we're going to do, because I found out then that he bought this property to go against his income in Germany. He wanted it to be at a loss.
Yep.
Well, guess what? Since he bought the place, they changed the tax laws in Germany, so he couldn't write off any losses outside of Germany against German income. So after a week with German accountants and German lawyers, I just told him I'd have to go home and talk to my wife before I give him a decision. I already knew that I was not going to do this, what he wanted me to do. So decided I would never, ever allow somebody to control my destiny. It was going to be based on me. If I failed, it was going to be because of me, not because somebody else controlled what I wanted to do. Long story, right?
No, it was good. So in the middle of that, you'd gotten married. How'd you meet your wife?
I met my wife a year after she met me. I was a pledge master for Block and Bridle Club, which she was trying to get into, and she saw me there. I didn't know who she was, and she wanted to meet me with some of my fraternity brothers, and he told me about that. Next thing I know, we were in a class together, and she kept punching me and saying, "You're a cult, you know that?" And so that was about the quarter before she left and graduated from Tech. So I was still there for another year, and we dated while she was in Chicago and I was in Blacksburg, and then I moved to DC area with the farm. So we managed back and forth from there until she told me that it would be better if we got married. She asked me to marry her, and like I told her, I said, the best thing I ever done in my life was to say yes to your proposal. The worst thing you've ever done was be stupid enough to ask me. But she did lie to me. She did say that it would be cheaper to be married than what we were doing. It didn't work out that way.
No, I've heard that line, but I don't think that's correct when you sum it all up. Any children?
I have 2 sons, and I always wanted boys because I'm the eldest of 9 kids. I got 7 sisters.
Wow.
So that's why I'm completely nuts. But I do have several women in my life, besides my wife and my mother and my sisters. I've got a granddaughter, and there's only one in this world that matters to me. And we're not going to say who it is, but I think you can probably imagine who it is.
I will keep my mouth shut. That's so good. So as we go through and you've started this family, what then led you from, you'd indicated, the Germans had worked you over. So what was the first leap to starting your own business? What'd you do?
I happened to apply for a job position in an insurance business. And of course, Greg, you know that you have to take all these tests if you're with a big firm. And the first thing they told me was, you're not fit for this business because you're not an extrovert. You're not this and you're not that. And I said, okay. So I went out and got my license anyway and started it on my own. Got contracted with an independent company and just took off from there.
Over the years, you've spent a lot of time in Fauquier County, have some history in as you said, in Southwest Virginia. What brought you to Central Virginia, Orange, Locust Grove, and now to more metropolitan Richmond, which we're just outside now in Chesterfield?
Well, basically, I was traveling up in the Northern Virginia area when I first got in these businesses, and my wife had 2 young kids, or we had 2 young kids. She was raising them, and she kind of got tired of me leaving on Monday morning, coming back Friday, and she's had the kids, and they were 2 and 4 years old at the time. So I promised her we would kind of get a little bit closer together so I wouldn't have to travel so much. And that's kind of why we moved up into the Central Virginia area from Lynchburg. We were in Lynchburg, but most of my business at the time was coming out of the other state of Northern Virginia. So we wanted to get together because family's the most important thing to me. So I didn't want her or the kids to be orphans, let's just put it that way.
Sure. Work orphans are just the same as orphans in a lot of ways.
That's right.
So you started the original business in the 84, 85?
84 and 85, yeah.
Okay. And was there any catalyst or just your drive that kept you to grow? Or did you ever have a lull and then there was a catalyst that said, I need to really get this moving forward, or something that's stuck?
Well, a couple things I would say. I mean, I survived after I got my securities license in 87. I survived the Black Monday crash of 87. And I just knew there was so many people that didn't understand what was going on. Mm-hmm. And one of my main goals has always been to understand where you are in your financial journey, because it is a journey. We don't all come out from our mother's wombs knowing everything that we need to know. And that's what I still find today, is that people and companies don't inform their employees well enough to make rational decisions when it comes to financials. The number of people that I have to convince to participate in their 401k with a matching program is unbelievable to me. But I think one of the biggest things that precipitated my desire to continue this was when a friend of mine, best friend, died after I'd written him a $400,000 life insurance policy after he paid 2 premiums, and he was killed by a drunk driver who happened to be his brother-in-law, who died on his first wedding anniversary. So you can't convince me that what we do doesn't affect people. So I guess that's why I'm still in the business.
No, it matters for sure. When we get into the life insurance business, which for those that don't know, that's where I started in this business, having that connection, having the ability to reach people, to say this is a real thing, and it can happen at 78 or it can happen at 28. You don't know.
That's right.
I joke with people. I said, if there was an expiration date on your birth certificate, this would be a lot easier.
That's right.
But it's difficult.
Or the other thing is, a lot of people ask me that they don't want to leave any money to anybody because they want to spend it on. I said, well, that's fine. I can tell you how to do it. It's just mathematics. You tell me how much you got, but my question to you is, when are you going to die? Because now I can tell you how much you need to take out. But nobody can give me that answer when they're going to die unless they know they suicide.
Yeah.
Then it may not pay.
There is that. So after establishing a well-known business in Central Virginia 5 years ago now, you took over what is now Welcome Home Financial.
Yeah.
What led to that decision? What led to that decision?
Well, it was one of those things that my son had came to me and wanted to get into the business with me, and I told him that didn't really know that was the right thing for him to do. And after 2 years, he finally convinced me that he wanted to do this. And I said, if you want to do this, this is what you need to do. And he went out and did that. And I said, all right, for us to maintain our financial thing, then we need to expand. We need to grow this business. So I basically bought the business for him, thinking that we would all be able to have 2 separate businesses at the time, but this business has taken off because of what we've been doing, that we just kind of combined everything together. So that's what really precipitated us buying the business down here, because we needed to expand. Because if you're not growing in business, then you're dying. And I'm not ready to die yet, even though a lot of people think I need to be because I'm so old, Grant.
Well, yeah. No, you've got too much to do. So with all of this that you've got going on, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
Well, believe it or not, one of my biggest dreams has always been to hike the AT. Even though I'm older than God or older than dirt, that some people think, they don't think I can do that. I still like whitewater canoeing, rafting. In fact, my sons, when we were all in Scouts together for 15 years, I used to take about a 70-mile trip with about 15, 16 Scouts every year, 70 miles down New River, since I grew up on New River in North Carolina. And we'd take, after the canoe trip, we'd go over to the New River Gorge and go rafting. And my boys used to get really upset because they would try to hire me to be a guide the next year. So I still like doing that. I've got my granddaughter into it, so we're still water people. We're still river people. The ocean's fine, but I'd rather be on a river. Still like to fish when I get an opportunity. Other than that, I mean, I do a lot of cooking. I've been offered jobs with 5-star restaurants before, after I catered events for some people. So I don't know what else to say to you about that. That's kind of what I do. It's just
Do it all.
I just want to be myself. Like some people tell me, said, well, you're different than anybody else. You need to be doing this and doing that. I said, I can only be who I am, because I'm not smart enough to be somebody else.
Being authentic is the easiest thing, quite honestly.
It's the only thing I can do.
I want to talk briefly, jump back just briefly with Welcome Home Financial. It's my understanding that, as you said, if you're not growing, you're dying, that the business has seen quite a significant jump as a result of the marketing you guys have done. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, started out with the marketing plan down here, just putting our toes in the water with TV. And we started doing some 30-second spots. We started doing some 2-minute spots. And I was told that you would always know what kind of response you would get the longer the sessions are. So we tried it out, and believe it or not, it started getting some traction. So COVID hit, and that was something, and like I tell people, you have to make lemonade out of lemons. Nobody anticipated COVID and what it would do to this business, and I knew no matter what business you're in, you cannot do the same thing based on what just happened. So it was probably a blessing in disguise, because would I be where I am today if I maintained what I had been doing? No. So I knew I needed to make some change, and that was the spot where it participated me to take some time to work on my business and not in my business, correct? That's my famous saying, right?
I've never heard it before. Say that one more time.
I wish I could do more of it, to be honest with you, but that was what precipitated me saying, all right, what we're doing in marketing now, we need to figure out, because of the changes in the environment, what we need to do. So we expanded about twice to 3 times our spend on TV. We went from a 3 to 4 minute spot to a 30-minute show. And once we did that 30-minute show, we have people, believe this or not, that they actually set their DVRs to watch our TV shows. And the one that most of them do is 7:30 on Saturday night on NBC 12 at a Richmond, because that's the one that's always constant. Then we have some scattered throughout the week, but they DVR. And I've actually had people I talk to on the phone and say, oh, I'm talking to the movie star. What can I do? Oh my God, can I get your autograph when I come in? But no,
It's called an application. You can.
But I think the biggest thing is we could not have maintained our growth, because my main thrust has always been around 20% growth. If I can do that, I'm satisfied. Last year it was over 50%, and I chalked that up to the TV. Yes, it costs a lot of money, but let me just tell you, it's well worth it if you can get a spot there. But it's not a show that I would say it's a sales show. This is more or less information. This is why you need to understand why it's important for you to come in. I mean, how many people know what to do when they retire? Because guess what? Like I tell people, number one, I'm so dumb as the old dumb country boy. The best teacher I've ever had has been experience. How many people ever retire more than one time in their life?
I know a few.
There are a few, but not very many. So now that you've got all these different decisions to make and you don't know what to do, and guess what? If you are lucky enough to work for a company that's got a pension, They're going to give you the paperwork, slide it to you, and say you got to fill this out. They're not going to help you or discuss with you what you need to do. So that's kind of what we do, is explain to people what they need to do and what they're about to do. We go through an income planning process where it says we're going to take your income, we're going to take your expenses, and see how good you are in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And people's never seen anything like that before. And it's just like last night. I had a client that was coming in. We had everything pulled together for her on the retirement income. And she goes, "Oh, well, you didn't talk about my college loan." I said, "Well, you didn't tell me about it." I said, "How much is it?" And she looks at me and says, "It's $400,000.
Is she a doctor or an attorney?
No, neither. She's a nurse.
Mercy.
So, but that's kind of where we go with these programs, because people need to understand, the nuances within retirement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't understand what RMDs are. We have some people that need to take money out before they are age 72, but we also have some that they've done a good job of keeping their debt down. They've got a good job and they've saved a bunch of money, and they don't need to take it out.
Mm-hmm.
And they get upset because they want to give it over to their legacy to their kids, and they're upset at me because we tell them they have to take it out. And I said, "I'm not telling you that. Federal government's doing that.
They want their money. You've had it long enough."
That's right. So it's always interesting the amount of experience that people either have or lack when it comes to dealing with stuff like this. And a lot of people think that what we do is just about investments. No. The biggest thing that you need to understand when you come in retirement, it's not about that big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that you got. Now you got to flip that switch from trying to accumulate that pot of gold to how do I get it back to me the best way. And the other thing that people need to understand is when you stop work, whatever time that is, you're responsible for your paychecks now. Nobody else. Yeah, you can rely on some of the Social Security, but is that going to be enough for you to live off of? Probably not for most people. So now it depends upon how well you've done. I mean, most people need to come in 5 to 10 years before they actually want to retire so they can get things in place.
That's right.
But we've had a lot of people call in from the TV and say, "Oh, I retired yesterday. I only need to come in. I've already signed the papers." And, I'll give you a perfect example. Somebody that had retired, and they came in and we wanted to do such and such. And he goes, "Well, I already signed the papers for the pension, and this is what I did. I took survivorship." Well, because of where he worked, he could take survivorship and give it to his son or whoever it was. Most people, it's just their spouses.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't realize at the time, because he took that survivorship, he had a reduction in his pension amount.
Significant.
But that's fine. If you want a survivorship, you do have to pay for it. But because of where he worked, there was a union contract that he could get survivorship without having to take that cut in pay, but he had already signed off on the pension and
He didn't.
couldn't make any. So that's why people need to go and talk to somebody, get a second opinion before you actually sign the dotted line.
Well, and it's not something that's taught in the schools in any level. In the same way, I mean, you got 15 minutes on how to write a check when I was in 8th grade.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
people don't talk about it, and it's supposed to be handed down from families, but people don't talk about politics and money. So nobody knows how to do it.
Yeah, the other thing I would say to you, and I have a lot of people that start apologizing to me that they didn't do a good job, and you didn't know this. And I said, let me just explain something. When I got out of college, there wasn't anything in retirement planning because it was always pensions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 80s hit, and now they're taking the pensions away, started to, because the companies couldn't afford to continue to pay for it, and they put the burden back on the people's shoulders. And what I mean by that is this. Now you have to have your own retirement check coming to you from your 401ks, your IRAs, things like that. But they weren't available to people that were retiring 10 years ago.
Right.
So don't beat yourself up too much. And I explain that to people. And you're right, Greg. Nobody understands anything about, because we were not taught about it unless you went to finance school or anything like that.
Yeah.
So just don't beat yourself up, but go to somebody that you can feel comfortable with, because there's too many charlatans out here.
Well, I'll wrap up with this, and appreciate you taking the time. I would just echo what you've said and interview a couple folks. You know, don't go to the first person that your coworker recommends or your neighbor or whatever. Interview people. It's important.
Or what I would also say is don't take that advice around the water cooler or your brother-in-law who might be working at McDonald's. What do they know about everything?
That's right. That's
Okay.
it. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Ralph.
All right, thank you.